So, today we're going to break down a short story called Chronicles of a Limerent Object and use it as a kind of case study. We're going to explore a psychological state that can push what looks like admiration into a really dangerous obsession. It's a stark look at how a fantasy inside one person's head can become an absolute nightmare for someone else.
It's a question I think we've all probably considered at some point. Where is that line? And how easy is it to cross? Well, the story we're diving into provides a pretty chilling answer, and it all revolves around one single powerful psychological concept.
And here it is. The key term for today is limerence. Now, I want you to think of this as so much more than just a crush. This is an involuntary, all-consuming mental state. It's where another person, who gets called the limerent object, becomes the absolute center of your universe. This is the lens we need to use to understand everything that happens next.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off at a simple language exchange event. We meet our two main characters, Matthieu and Nora, and in their very first interaction, something triggers this intense and, well, ultimately dangerous focus in Matthieu.
So right from the jump, Matthieu's internal monologue just completely takes over. He sees Nora as radiant. That one word, it instantly lifts her out of the realm of a normal person. He's already building this pedestal to put her on, creating an ideal that the real Nora could never, ever live up to.
All right, so now we're going to go deep inside Matthieu's head, and we're going to see how he builds this entire fantasy around Nora. A fantasy that, and this is crucial, has almost nothing to do with who she really is.
And this is what's so wild about it. Matthieu actually knows he has a history of idealizing people. He's aware of it. So he keeps telling himself, not this time. This time I'm in control, I'm being realistic. But what he calls realism is really just obsession wearing a different mask.
So to prove to himself that he's not idealizing her, he starts cataloging her flaws. But I mean, just look at the detail here. This isn't seeing a whole person, flaws and all. This is like a forensic analysis. He's still just reducing her to a collection of parts. They're just negative ones instead of positive ones. It is absolutely obsession disguised as objectivity.
And this right here, this just perfectly captures the massive contradiction happening in his mind. One part of him is completely ecstatic just to be near her, seeing her as this perfect present, while the other part is patting himself on the back saying, "See, I'm not idealizing her." His fantasy is already way too powerful for his self-awareness to control.
Okay, so that's what's going on in Matthieu's head. It's this whole big internal world, but what does his fantasy actually feel like from the outside? For Nora, it is not flattering. It is deeply, deeply unsettling.
And wow, this slide just lays out the massive disconnect clear as day. When Matthieu admits he's been focusing on her flaws, he seems to think she'll take it as a compliment. Like, see how realistic I'm being. But Nora immediately calls it what it is, just another flavor of obsession. She feels reduced, dehumanized. His intention? It's totally irrelevant, right? Because the impact is what matters.
And here, Nora just hits the nail on the head. She explains the core problem so perfectly. Being a limerent object means you stop being a person with your own thoughts and feelings. You become a blank screen for someone else's movie, for their fantasies and their desires. She loses the simple, basic freedom to just be.
Okay, so this is where things really start to escalate. Nora is uncomfortable, and she does the right thing. She sets a clear boundary. And this is the moment Matthieu's fantasy collides head-on with her reality, and he flat-out refuses to accept it.
And just look at how she does it. It's so calm, so reasonable. The request is clear, it's polite, and it even offers a way to move forward, just as friends. She's trying to de-escalate the whole situation with respect.
His response? Yeah, not so reasonable. It's not a response, it's a barrage. A total onslaught. The sheer volume of it is a boundary violation all by itself. It's his way of completely refusing to accept her simple no by trying to bury it under an avalanche of his own analysis. And here's just a little taste of what he sends her. Do you see what he's doing? He's not listening to what she said.
He's telling her what she really feels. He's completely rewriting her reality to fit his story, diagnosing her with emotional issues to make her boundary invalid. It's a classic tactic to refuse rejection.
So after getting that novel-length psychoanalysis, Nora comes back with this, and it is so simple and so powerful. She doesn't get into an argument, she doesn't debate his points, she just brings it back to the simple, undeniable truth. It's her choice, it's her feeling, and it doesn't need a justification. It's just a profound way of taking her power back.
But Matthieu just can't or won't accept her no. And this is the point where his mental obsession spills out from his mind into the physical world, turning his private fantasy into a very, very real threat.
I mean, this description, it is just so visceral. You can feel the violation. Nora feels his mental obsession as a physical invasion. He's taking the very idea of her and twisting it, poisoning her daily life until she feels like a toy, like a Mrs. Potato Head he can just take apart and put back together however he wants.
And this is the climax, and it is absolutely chilling. Just look at the progression. It's so methodical. He tries her locked door. He waits outside. He slips into her building. He sits right outside her apartment, practicing what he's going to say. Every single step is a boundary completely ignored, all leading up to that terrifying final knock-knock, a sound that means he has refused to hear her at every single turn.
You know, a reader of the original story, a guy named Donald Hammond, he just summed it up absolutely perfectly. This is the core warning of the whole thing. Matthieu lived so deeply inside his own head that he genuinely started to believe his imagined connection gave him rights to the real Nora. He mistook his fantasy for a real connection and his own desire for her consent.
So this whole story really leaves us with this huge, critical question to think about in our own lives. At what point does deep affection or even love curdle into a sense of possession? Because a true connection respects another person's autonomy. It accepts their boundaries. But limerence, like we've seen here, can be a fantasy that ultimately tries to own, to control, and to completely erase the very person it claims to adore.